We see people joining already, and apologies for the little bit of confusion on timing. So I think some people joined at 8 o'clock, but we're all set for 9 o'clock, and I'll be back momentarily and see you in a minute. Hey, welcome everyone. It's the top of the hour. We're still seeing people join, so I'm going to give it just one more minute and we'll get started. Welcome to another Ecosystem Business Summit. We are so excited. We got a great lineup today. Go ahead, please announce yourself in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from, and I'll be back in a minute and see you shortly. Hey, welcome everyone. Chip Rogers, Chief Partner Officer at WorkSpan, and welcome to another amazing Ecosystem Business Summit. We're really excited. We have a great lineup started today. There's actually a poll up. Go ahead, please answer the poll question. We'll have poll questions sort of throughout the day today. This question is about your role at your company, and love to hear and let us know what your role is as a partner leader. Okay, so we have just an incredible group of folks that have registered, and looking forward to having everybody here. Gosh, software companies, hardware companies, telcos, GSIs, a lot of all the great folks from that are participating in the ecosystem of technology partners. So love to have everybody here. Welcome. Okay, we have another poll coming up. Kevin, I think Kevin's going to launch another poll. This one is on the partner activities that you manage. So please go ahead and take that poll if you would. That would be great. We'll keep going here. We have one of the things we love about Ecosystem Business Summit is the number of senior leaders that are joining, directors, VPs, and CXOs. So thank you all for joining, and we're really glad that the kind of quality of content that we're able to bring to EBS is really attractive to senior leaders, to hear what other senior leaders are thinking about and doing in their programs. A couple of housekeeping things. Add your picture up in the Hopin platform. If you ask a question during the session, it'll show. We'll actually show your question up on the stage. And if you've added your photo, we'll see your picture. Introduce yourself. Let us know where you're joining from. I'm actually here in San Carlos in the San Francisco Bay Area. Let us know where you're joining from. We love to hear. Ask questions. We really want to keep the sessions interactive. So please go ahead and ask questions, answer the polls that are that are coming up, and everything takes place in the Stage tab in Hopin. So keep your, that's where you're gonna go for everything, all the actions there. We have a couple of few assets that we wanted to share with you. We put the QR codes up there so you can just grab those real easily right off your screen. We worked with partnership leaders and created the State of Co-Selling Report Hyperscaler Edition. Tremendous information from a lot of partners that are working with hyperscalers, how they're working, what's not working, challenges, who they're working with. A lot of great information in there, so you'll want to check that out. Then we have the ultimate guide to co-sell partnering with cloud providers. Great information. I think about 45 page document there that's got a lot of great information on co-selling with your cloud providers. And then finally, an ebook on co-selling methodologies, driving revenue together, best practices for co-selling for success. So check those out, and we'll also put the links in the chat as well. Okay, let's get to it. We have a fantastic event today. We're going to start it off with Amit Sinha, our president and co-founder, who's joining, and Amit's going to talk about just the movement with hyperscalers and incredible statistics. I've seen Amit go through this presentation. Really amazing. Some of the things that are happening with hyperscalers. Then at 9:30, Nina Harding is going to be joining us, and Nina is Corporate Vice President, America's Global Partner Solutions at Microsoft. Very senior leader at Microsoft. We were honored and thrilled to have Nina joining us, and she's going to be talking about driving customer value with partners through co-selling business, through the co-sell business. Microsoft has been a pioneer in co-selling, so really excited to have Nina joining us. And then we have Gary Larder. Gary is Director of International Alliances at OWN, formerly known as OWN Backup. And Gary is going to be talking about unlocking co-sell and marketplace with AWS, and really talking about some of the data-driven ways that they're running their business. And Puneet Mittal is our CFO and COO, is going to be moderating the conversation with Gary. And then we have Brett Fountain. Brett is head of AWS Alliances at Deepwatch, also co-founder of Caddyshack, and excited to have Brett with us. And Brett's going to be talking about some of the amazing, again, statistics, that the rapid acceleration of the way that they've gone and really are driving a ton of pipeline and revenue with hyperscalers. Okay, I think with that, I'm going to do just a quick, we'll hear from a few customers, and I'll be back in a second.
The power of partnership is unbelievable. The value you can create with partners, shared capital, shared go-to-market, shared client relationships, you can really, really unlock value quickly, and it shows up as growth. Yeah. That's ultimately how it shows up on the balance sheet.
We were dying in spreadsheet chaos and management of our business plans or shared goals or processes. Yep. How are we exchanging, people, processes, content? And you touched on there is legal sensitivity, but there is also competitive sensitivity as you exchange that information with your partners. So you sort of have to see the same data and the same goals through a unified set of perspectives. And that's where automation is key. And that's where you're not necessarily working within a company. You're actually working across hundreds of companies at this point. So what can be shared, what can't be? And you need to have the shared perspective and data to drive the right value for the customer. So that's why I think automation is really important. And I think that's why we have been working very closely together.
WorkSpan has been very critical for us, obviously, because the platform is monitoring and tracking all the business that we are doing. But most importantly, we also have the support of a sales desk. And so the sales desk are also regionally based. There are 5 people right now. We are looking at expanding that team. And essentially, they help us follow up and follow through the opportunities that we have tracked in WorkSpan together with the rest of the entities or companies that are participating in driving this deal.
People are comfortable with spreadsheets, but that's not the path that we can take. We need to digitize. We need to digitize, and we need to automate what we're doing. And if I can take just a moment to explain what that means in our co-sell world, it's about creating visibility to the pipeline. We work on the premise that if you don't see it, you can't manage it. What somebody needs to do is to go into Workspan and pull the report or look at a sales view, a sales plan view, and just consume the data. Really quickly discern, are we aligned on these opportunities that need to close this quarter? Are there discrepancies? If there are, go and action on those.
Okay. All right. Let's get started. Amit, welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Chip. Always excited to come speak at the Ecosystem Business Summit. This is our gathering of the fellowship, the community of partner leaders learning from each other. So warm welcome to everybody. And thank you, Chip.
Yep. Fantastic. Take it away.
Yeah, today I'm going to talk about the hyperscaler moment. And as we have all seen, this is a critical element of the business network, one of the super nodes, one of the emerging massive clusters that one has to really think and utilize as you think about the growth levers in this economy. So what's the hyperscaler moment, right? If you look at the larger macro, TechTarget and other research firms have established that software spending is down. It is 30% down. And why is this happening? We've seen the economy around us tighten. We've seen access to capital freeze up a little bit. We've seen companies downsizing. And as a result, those seats are no longer being utilized. And there is deeper scrutiny around all our budgets, right? So folks who have gone and pitched to CFOs, for example, there's bigger scrutiny. There are buying committees that are putting additional hurdles there, because really what is in the moment is what needs to be truly funded for company growth. Now, at the same time, what we are seeing is that the cloud spend has actually increased 20%. This figure comes from Gartner, that year over year, the cloud spend has increased 20%. And this is why this is happening, is because there's a once-in-a-generation move to the cloud. Companies are replatforming from their on-premise systems to the cloud. But also, new innovations are actually built natively in the cloud. If you talk about Gen AI stuff, the next generation data and AI platform pieces, the modern applications, they are born in the cloud itself. It's not just the replatforming of it. So there's a huge trend towards cloud spending. And companies are optimizing on that spend by larger cloud commitments to bring the overall cost down as well. So these hyperscalers have cloud commitments from companies that make a bet on one or more of these hyperscaler clouds at the same time. So this juxtaposition of down 30% overall IT spend, but the cloud spend is actually secular and growing at 20%, and if anything, it's actually accelerating. The other piece about the cloud is the moment where we are in is cloud is actually very, very mature. If you look at owning your own infrastructure versus going to hyperscalers, the maturity, the richness, the APIs, the services available. If you were to build any modern company, this creates that frictionless way to just simply go start working and create the next generation app, create the next generation user experience. And the pay by SIP models that have come in drive consumption, and you don't have to take the huge risk away. So this maturity that the cloud platforms have provided in terms of the offerings that can come quickly, you can learn from those offerings by iterating very quickly. For example, we've seen marketplace listings come online. People quickly see the offering, get massive test and deployment done, and then a second listing come in very, very quickly. That actually scales from where the initial mass of adoption is. So the cloud, marketplaces as well as the cloud platforms are used for rapid iteration in terms of frictionlessly deploying, testing, and driving consumption. And for the hyperscalers themselves, how does IT spending get optimized? They're able to work with large enterprise buyers, SMB buyers, and optimize their spend, their consumption, looking at different workloads and so on and so forth. So huge maturity in the cloud. And at the same time, as we have seen, on one end, there are people increasingly adopting the cloud things in a frictionless, way. The co-sell piece has come in, where partners are working very closely with hyperscalers, be it AWS, Microsoft, or Google, to collaboratively, share pipeline. And this could be partner, originated or hyperscaler originated opportunities. And as a result of joint positioning and joint, work, more and more, frictionless transactions are happening. And what better than actually connect the marketplace to it? So from a transactable point of view, we are seeing, huge amount of co-sell, which was actually happening through direct, sales, actually move towards marketplace sales. So as these hyperscaler teams have now combined their co-sell, practices, their co-sell teams together with the marketplace practices and marketplace teams, we are seeing the complete continuum from innovation where you're listing to the co-sell process and then transactability around this. And it doesn't stop there. That's where you can quickly provision the application and drive consumption. We are living in this cloud world where it is about annual recurring licenses and renewals. And what we've also seen is the disproportionate effect of hyperscaler marketplaces as well as co-sell on the renewal cycles. Because you can deploy provision faster, you can actually deploy faster. And because you have more, months in a year devoted to actual adoption, we see that cloud deals actually renew at a much better rate than traditional deals. And even better is that you can also combine the influence from not only your side towards renewal, but also the hyperscaler contracts for those renewals as well. So all in all, huge maturity. This macro around declining overall software spend, but cloud spend is growing faster, coupled with the innovation, frictionless, rapid consumption, provisioning, and transactability of the marketplace, creates this moment for the hyperscalers and the surrounding ecosystems around them. So if I were an ISV, a GSI, or a tech partner today, have to have an hyperscaler strategy, especially with one or all of them put together. And this number is huge. This came from Canalys recently. The $45 billion in projected marketplace transactions here. And every company that is selling in the high-tech space, whether it's software applications or services, needs a share of this. And as a result, packaging your IP, putting it on the marketplace listing, whether you're a software company or services company, this has become the repeatable way to actually make your co-sell process more efficient, more scalable. So keep these three numbers in mind: 30%, 20%, and 45 billion. Now, behind this is, of course, an ecosystem being orchestrated, right? So if you look at any hyperscaler ecosystem, there is, of course, very direct ways of working. For example, in ISV, working with a hyperscaler partner. And just yesterday, I think CrowdStrike and AWS announced that they've crossed $1 billion in sales through the marketplace. That's an example of hyper growth enabled through the marketplace. We have similar win stories at all scales, actually. From data and AI partners. Look at AI as a boom in the industry, largely enabled because ISVs are doing AI for X, AI for any line of business, AI for any industry, like healthcare, for example. Those things are really partnerships enabled through the hyperscaler offerings, the base platform, but also the get to market and the go to market aspect of things. The incentives there, the go-to-market machine there, the existing customers who buy there, just phenomenal way for companies to actually see growth. So 10 years ago, the right way to grow was through sales, and marketing efforts. In this decade, the right way to grow, especially in an accelerated way, in a disproportionate way, is through partnerships, especially with those with hyperscalers. I want to call out two additional patterns that I'm seeing. So if you are a global system integrator, you orchestrate a bunch of SIs towards a digital transformation project, and seeing a certain movement in the industry towards packaging that use case, that end-to-end use case for a given vertical or a horizontal problem, and then actually packaging that IP on a hyperscaler marketplace and taking it to market with them. And I think this pattern is actually even more transformative because it's working on end customer needs, end customer use cases, especially those transformation use cases. So whether we are talking about rethinking retail experience, whether we are talking about rethinking sustainability as a choice that we have to make as a human race, whether we are thinking about really hard problems in supply chain, we are looking at rethinking digital transformation and digitally transforming that business workflow. And GSIs are orchestrating an end-to-end solution where the customer is really in the middle, and they have the end-to-end solution that could include 1 or 2 ISVs, or 3, or in some cases, even 8 to 10 ISVs put together. And this motion is truly delivering, transformation at scale, because the hyperscaler infrastructure is there to provide that basis for change, basis for innovation, and you will see more and more of this pattern. So if you are in, the message for you is very clear. If you are an ISV sitting in the audience today, if you have a hyperscaler strategy, think about what is your hyperscaler strategy in conjunction with the GSI or the services strategy, especially with regional SIs, domain SIs, and global SIs. And I think this is going to be the next phase of partner to partner, multi-partner growth coming because of the ecosystem around the hyperscalers. Now, for a while, we thought the channel was getting disrupted with this, but guess what? One of the fastest growing segments within the hyperscaler strategy is actually channels partners. So things like CPPO, where channel partners and ISV partners are transacting and working through the hyperscaler marketplaces, is also emerging. So look for these two additional things. What is your channel strategy and what is your services strategy next to your own strategy with the hyperscaler? Because your own strategy with a hyperscaler is going to become table stakes very, very soon. And we are seeing trends where it is important and imperative to connect directly with these partners. 3 quick success stories. First, abnormal security. This is something that WorkSpan worked with Microsoft. I'm very excited to welcome Nina next to the panel. She's going to come on in 10 minutes. Starts very simple. Start with one. And here, Abnormal has done plans at the global and regional level with different account teams. And what they saw was a 15x increase in co-sell velocity. And oftentimes we say, in partnerships, successful partnerships are those that have velocity. They actually do things for each other quickly. So I think that is a good measure of success, that you can accelerate this. Because of digitization, you can move this at network speed. And that's what Abnormal Security saw. Reltio, this is a great story as well, because they started with all hyperscalers, so AWS, Microsoft, and GCP. They're just 2 alliance professionals. And here what we're seeing is not just the increase in revenue, but also the cost simplicity, right? So relatively lower leverage on headcount, but huge impact in terms of co-sell, but also in terms of marketplace transactions. So this is where we call about efficiently growing. And Greg Sarafin from EY calls this the differential. Like you grow revenue 2.1x, but at the same time, your cost base is actually declining by 1.5x. So if you're competing with a company with an ecosystem strategy like this, like Reltio has, you're actually competing with a clearly 3.6x differential overall in terms of both the top line and the bottom line. And in the opening, you saw an example with SAP. They not only work with the hyperscalers, if you look at Rise or Grow with SAP, working with the public cloud infrastructures, but also their GSI ecosystem around it. And then complementing it is also the ISV ecosystem around it, because they want to give the customer the complete solution around the SAP platform. And on WorkSpan, they have 6.5 billion in co-sell pipeline today with GSIs, with ISVs and tech companies out there across 1,200 plus plans. So this is something that shows you that we can start with just one partnership, grow to all hyperscalers, and eventually add GSIs, ISVs, and hyperscalers into a cohesive ecosystem strategy where you're not only participating in other people's ecosystem, but you're also orchestrating your own. So that's the key takeaway. That this feels very different than the partner portal world. This feels more like a networked, collaborative, peer working with each other. So our vision at Workspan was to be the world's largest and trusted ecosystem network. We are well on our way for that vision, where we are connecting companies to work well with one another. And part of it is like, how do we do that, right? So one is, think of Workspan as first a human to human network, right? And here, one partner manager from one company can actually co-sell together with another company, as long as you're connected to your systems and they are connected to your systems. We are in the middle providing secure data sharing. This is where your data is private that you mark. It's not shared with external partners without your permissions. And similarly, on their partner side as well, that guarantees there that if there are fields or documents or records that are marked as internal only, they are not shared externally. That field level data privacy and attribute based access control makes this network collaboration happen at scale. And that's why audit firms like Deloitte and EY and companies like Google and AWS and Microsoft and SAP share their pipeline connected to their CRM in real time, because their corporate policies on data sharing is actually not only honored and respected, but actually guarded, because we all know spreadsheets do travel. Next is integration, right? And this is key. Connecting to the CRM systems natively, to Salesforce, to Dynamics, to HubSpot. And on both sides, all you need to do is connect once to Workspan and then connect to each company processes. And then having a process layer that translates. So if you think about, business workflow that can start in your own company and end in another company. So we saw with Microsoft, for example, a deal can begin in your CRM, but needs to traverse to Microsoft Partner Center or AWS ACE system or Google Partner Advantage or SAP's CRM systems, and back and forth. This ability to actually take a process and translate as to what it means in the other side. So take an AWS requirement or Microsoft or Google requirement and convert it into what does it mean here and now in your CRM for that deal if you want to go partner with this company. That simplicity is something that we've enabled. And lastly, as a partnering organization, a key change in chief partner officers coming in. And what is different and unique about this is they're no longer talking about influence and soft measurements around, partnering teams are contributing, and yes, we do a lot. This is about measurement and rigor. This is about, just as how sales has their sales stages and organized around what they're forecasting, what we're seeing now is chief partner officers, and you will see the example with Own and Deepwatch later on. These leaders are very clear about their revenue contribution to business. And because of that rigor and measurement, they're getting the investment and success. So here on Workspan, we've managed close to 50 billion in pipeline for co-sell. That's the volume today we manage. And just this on the right-hand side, what you can see is the bidirectional co-sell opportunity referral with just the hyperscalers. We have partners who have more than 10,000, even reaching 40,000 co-sell referrals a year. And we have partners who are just starting the journey with hundreds of referrals in a year. Certainly, if you've gone more than 30 co-sell opportunities, it crosses a human threshold to refer them, manage them, and update them and change them every week. And as a result, that threshold, if you've crossed 30, definitely this is the time for looking at automation so that you can speak to the business benefit of having the tool do the automation and work for you, but you focusing on the co-sell opportunity. The other big chart, we've been looking at this chart for a couple of years now. What has really changed in the last couple of years is the inbound from the hyperscalers. It used to be that a lot of the opportunities used to be outbound from the partner to the hyperscaler, looking for the hyperscaler influence and cloud commits and all those things. But what we really found different this year is the inbound deals. And I think there is one trend in the industry why this is happening is, one, the hyperscalers are really becoming, and their account teams are really becoming about not just competing for themselves, but competing as an ecosystem. They are truly in there because they are quota neutral. They are truly in there to kind of find not only the relevant hyperscaler opportunity, but also hunt together with the ISVs and the GSIs in that account. These strategies have become now mainstays at these companies. So that's one key reason that why this is happening. Second is that cloud commitment needs to be retired. So not only through the hyperscalers infrastructure and their core offerings, but also through the ISVs and GSIs. And I think this trend of retiring the cloud commitments is going to carry on, because if you looked at the AWS, Microsoft, and Google earnings, their unrealized, undeployed, inventory of stuff that is already sold in future years is way out there than what that companies have been able to consume so far. So huge opportunity, and that's why the yellow lines that you see in this bar used to be like a 10 or 20%. We are seeing this approach 50%, somewhere between a third to a 50% is what we are seeing now, and that's different. So if you are in the world to kind of receive opportunities, this is and that's the reason why you want to participate. I think this hyperscalers at this moment in time is one of the best bets in terms of growing pipeline for yourself because of these strategies. And here, very excited today, we are announcing the WorkSpan Hyperscaler Edition. So looking at this moment, this is the right time for WorkSpan to kind of take the overall offering that we have and package it into a hyperscaler offering. In this offering, what you get is, of course, core WorkSpan on a cloud native neutral platform that is connected to your CRM. So if you have salesforce.com, you have a native experience of WorkSpan inside salesforce.com. You have also connectivity into Microsoft Dynamics, HubSpot, and your CRM system on one side. But on the other side, this hyperscaler edition comes with pre-integration, bi-directional integration into AWS, Microsoft, and Google. We are the only company that offers this bi-directional co-sell integration in an API-based way, where we have automation back and forth from your CRM to AWS ACE, Microsoft Partner Center, Google Partner Advantage, and it works the other way as well. And this is where we are also very excited to announce that we have also not just that co-sell piece in the middle, but to the left of it, listing management. So we are in the market. We have launched this service. If you have listings that you are innovating on, creating new vertical packages, horizontal packages on any one of these marketplaces, we have the experts in-house to actually help accelerate your journey towards good listings. And then Puneet will have an announcement on the private offer side. I'll leave it to that. This is very exciting that we can do the end-to-end piece of your work with the hyperscalers, from innovating to co-selling to actually transacting that offer. So this is your growth engine. This is your innovation engine, and think about the WorkSpan Hyperscaler Edition as a packaged way to kind of get there. With that, Chip, I spoke a lot. Wanted to share the goodness that we have been seeing and working with these companies. And just a quick stat, for example, last quarter we saw over 200,000 co-sell opportunities with these hyperscalers. It's just massive volume. So extremely stoked and excited about the ecosystem around hyperscalers and how our teams itself are working, co-innovating with AWS directly on their APIs with Microsoft, and same thing with Google. These are exciting teams to work with in the partnering space.
Amit, that was fantastic. Gosh, some eye-popping numbers. I hear I see some of the chat and reactions to some of the numbers that you're quoting, and it really is incredible. I think we had a couple of questions, but I think considering the time, we'll keep moving. We want to make sure we get Nina in here, and so I'm going to share one other quick video from some customers, and then Nina will bring you in.
The experience has been fantastic so far, right? And what we need now is information all the time, information real time, not only between the customer and SAP, but as well including the ecosystem, right? And I think that's what WorkSpan can provide.
We need to get tooling out of the way. If you're co-selling with us at scale, those integrations and workflows need to feel natural for your sellers so they can focus on the deal and not on the mouse clicks. And in this, WorkSpan has really come through with a powerful solution that creates that connective tissue between your organization and ours. And so having WorkSpan as a partner that helps us overcome those challenges has been really fantastic.
In PXP, in the platform, what these guys have to do is create an integrated partner plan. If we see from one partner that they want to focus on this opportunity, and then we use the power of AI again and bring it through the WorkSpan platform, we can push out even more opportunities because we have those insights right now. Of course, we leverage then with WorkSpan, the platform, to coordinate those selling motions across Cisco, reseller, eco-seller, system partner sellers.
The winning qualities of WorkSpan, I know I listed many already, but it was not only the native integrations you have with CRM tools, but it's also the network platform that you have. The fact that when we looked at our over 100 alliance partners, more than half of them were already on your platform. And that mattered to us. One, because the partners that we respect also have trusted WorkSpan for their activities, but also the fact that it would be just that much easier to use WorkSpan as a tool because half of our partners are already on it.
Fantastic. Okay. Nina.
Hi, Chip.
Let me take the slides out and we'll just bring us together here like this. Awesome. There we go.
Terrific.
Hey, Nina, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, that's
Great
to see you, and thanks for joining. And I'm going to leave it to you guys, and I'll step out and enjoy.
Absolutely. Hey, Nina, warm welcome to you from the Ecosystem Business Summit. You've had a tremendous career across 25 years, huge impact at SAP, then at Google, and now you're CVP Americas for Global Partner Solutions. So congratulations on such an impact on partners throughout your career.
It's been a lot of fun. And Amit, I think you and Chip both have been part of that journey with me for many, many years, probably even decades now. So I'm really excited about the opportunity to be here today with you.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thanks for that partnership. It takes two to tango, and you've certainly kind of helped everybody in the ecosystem. I'm excited about your role at Microsoft. Microsoft, when we think about partnering, we think about, preeminent companies in the world that really talk and walk the ecosystem walk, all the way from Satya calling it partner first, cloud first company in the same breath. Talk a little bit about Microsoft and its partnering strategy, and especially with AI in this age. If you can talk a little bit more about that strategy, that'd be great.
Oh, absolutely. So partners are at the heart of everything that Microsoft does. From over the decades, I think our ecosystem is one of the largest and most thriving ecosystems out there. And that's a testament to how core partners are to everything we do. Whether you're helping to facilitate introduction to new customers through our channels approach and selling our solutions, or you're providing those incredible services that really deliver on the promise of what Microsoft offers from its products, but you're out there innovating with the customers on the front lines and making sure that all of the commitments and the dreams of what we want to do together actually come to fruition and to light. Or you are an ISV, or you're packaging your IP in some way. We really look to make sure that across all those different areas, whether it's from a telco or distribution or even change management perspective, right, with some of the advisory companies, that everyone is excited and an extension of Microsoft and the passion. I feel that I joined Microsoft, or I actually have to say rejoined Microsoft. This is my second tour of duty here at Microsoft. And when you come back to a company, you absolutely know why you're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming back because the strength of the product, the innovation that Microsoft can provide, AI is just opening the doors in so many ways. We've even just updated our partner program to call it the Microsoft AI Partner Program, because AI is central to everything we're doing. So it's just a super exciting time. We have incredible people, passionate, partner being central to everything that we do. And the promise is out there of just making sure that we're innovating with our customers for that next wave of the technology.
Absolutely, Nina. And I think, if I look at the larger Microsoft strategy and how you're addressing the customer need, you're going together with to market with ISVs. We presented earlier the abnormal security example, but also industries like ABB, for example, where you're co-innovating with them on new offers and then co-selling. It's also GSIs, Wipro or Kyndryl, for example. These are companies that actually use Workspan today to work with Microsoft. Can you speak a little bit about co-selling, though? It's a term that's not kind of very well understood in the industry yet, even though Microsoft kind of innovated and coined on this, I think at least 7-8 years ago. Talk a little bit about your impressions around co-selling and how you think this can be applied to Microsoft, and what message you have for ISVs and GSIs.
Yeah, well, Amit, I often joke that co-selling is both my favorite word and my least favorite word out there in the world of partnership, because it's really an umbrella term to talk about the fact that with Microsoft, we really want to work with our partners and jointly sell together to create a seamless experience for our customers.
Right.
Co-selling means something unique to almost every company. You ask 12 different companies what co-selling means, and it's different. The definition is different from every company. So I really encourage all partners out there that when you're talking about co-selling, you're digging beneath that layer to really understand and set the proper expectations. At Microsoft, co-selling is absolutely intrinsic to the environment. We have one of the largest sales forces out there in the world. Absolutely. And so what we do is we not only commit from saying, hey, we're going to bring partners into opportunities and attach partners into those opportunities, which we measure. Absolutely. But it's more than that. We look at co-selling with where are we going through joint engagement together. So we've identified opportunities, and that's where Workspan has offered an incredible way for us to be transparent with each other, and accountable with each other on what we're jointly going after, where we might be endorsing solutions into customers because they make sense. You mentioned industry, right? We have a whole set of, say, healthcare and life sciences or retail core solutions that are applicable to those customers. And we can do so in a way in the customer's voice, the way of agitating on the challenges and the problems they're facing that way. Or we can also create opportunity through what you were just talking about, through marketplace, where we have this phenomenal ability to reach all of our customers in market, showcase all of the ISV solutions that are out there, and then also help the customer with a value proposition of why they might want to select working for us on Azure, right? Because they'll drive a contract. Microsoft will drive a contract, or our resellers will drive a contract with the customers, and they can aggregate their Azure spend together across all the different ISV solutions. That's amazing for our purchasing departments and a value proposition to companies on how they can really look to optimize their spend and create the consistency and the interoperability of a lot of solutions.
Absolutely. And I think you mentioned some co-sell readiness criteria along the Azure marketplace. What are some new requirements that Microsoft has in this space?
Sure. Well, of course, I would encourage anyone that really wants to know all the specifics to go to Partner Center and look at the ISV page, right? There's a whole hub for this. What we have is we have a number of trainings that help you on mastering the marketplace, or understanding how to set up your solutions as an ISV or a solution IP vendor with success. We have office hours to help support the partners, etc. But what's really important is that we're constantly looking at delivering on the value proposition that our customers want, that it's flexible to their needs, and they already understand that the interoperability is there, right? That they're not having to trip over themselves or create that integration at that point.
Makes sense. Makes sense. And you talk to a lot of chief partner officers, especially companies transforming their strategy. What is your advice to them as to how should they measure their value to boards? And talk a little bit about strategies that you have found effective in demonstrating this value.
So when I speak with a lot, and you're right, I speak with a lot of partners, and what I find is the best question right now is how they're looking at success and how we're looking at success. And I feel like that conversation has changed a little bit, right? Is to make sure that we're mutually understanding each other's needs for how we measure that and how that manifests itself. What's very common is it used to be just about revenue a lot of times, right? And increasingly, it's not just about the revenue. It's really about the satisfaction and the success that the customers are experiencing with the partner solutions, because we've moved on to these opportunities for companies to actually switch between vendors fairly rapidly and easily. So understanding that lifetime value and really focusing on the ongoing commitment as a partner to that business is really important. I think I also talk, besides customer success and their happiness with the solution, is we talk a lot about, are you measuring how much of your data do you have managed and readied? That's an important topic right now. In particular, making sure that that's secure on the platform. And this is one of the main reasons why I'm so proud to represent Microsoft in this area, because as the future is unfolding around AI, AI is only possible if we have all of our data managed and securely leveraged on the platform for you. So that's pretty critical right now. And the last thing is, we've always looked at, like, how do you grow your customers, but bringing on all the net new customers as well. So how that customer expansion is critical in both facets. So I look at all of those things when I talk about it outside of just the revenue side to both companies.
Absolutely. So it's a multifaceted, bring many aspects, dimensions of that forward in when you kind of present your value back to leaders.
Yeah.
Nina, could you give some examples of partners taking advantage of AI or the Microsoft partnering process as it's central to their business strategy?
Sure. I mean, obviously, with our services partners, we're on the front lines agitating on the future of businesses, right? So take a company like BIC, right? And many of us know about BIC, right? They're stationary, lighters, shavers, you name it, right? And we have a partner like Satori Analytics that brought in Microsoft Azure Cloud. And BIC was able to gather a lot of the data from connected shavers to understand specific details regarding skin color and hair intensity. And then this data was then able to inform personalized recommendations through mobile apps to guide BIC R&D processes. I mean, you name it, it starts to go into product development, customer marketing, and penetration in a way that's meaningful to all of us. But then if I look beyond, like, what all of our SI partners are doing, the ISV examples, I think, are what are really exciting right now, right? People are looking at how do we expand. So take someone like Data Robot. Data Robot is working with us to build a notebook code generator for their data science workbench. And they launched it at Build. Azure OpenAI services models can now actually be used directly inside Data Robot, making it easier to build models using code and no-code methods and deploy and govern them on Azure machine learning. So some of these seamless experiences, like this first one, right? Data Robot uses large language models to help accelerate the adoption of generative AI for businesses of all sizes. But I can't tell you, I don't think there is a single software partner out there, a single ISV that is not exploring how this will make a meaningful difference, whether it's through recommendations, chat, helping to generate emails, call center technology. Think about a LexisNexis and being able to revamp the entire legal system. AI is just opening the world to so many things.
Yeah.
And our job at Microsoft is to help guide the partners to do that responsibly.
What a powerful example, Nina, you shared both across BIC and here with the Data Robot example. It creates a platform for co-innovation for ISVs, for services partners, and apply them in transformative ways that we are yet to see. So just the potential is just game changing here. I'm going to get to your team and your advice as a leader in a second. But before that, I want to talk a little bit about your advice to partners. Microsoft is a large ecosystem. They need to stand out. What advice do you have for ISVs and also GSIs and regional SI service partners, both, because you look across a whole spectrum of partners?
Sure.
What advice do you have for partners? How do they stand out?
So we've known each other for a long time, right? And so first and foremost, I think success breeds success. So I'm always someone that loves to start with, where have you been successful with your customers, and tell those stories. More and more, we're all hearing these certain phrases in market, and it's sometimes hard to understand what one company is doing rather than another, because we're all using these catchphrases. But it's actually through the storytelling of the impact that you're having that it really illuminates your value proposition, both to customers as well as to sales teams if they're trying to identify who you are. So understanding what your superpower or your value prop is, if you're everything to everyone, you're no one to no one, right? And so I often recommend making sure that you start with your superpower. Sometimes it's better and far more effective to go in with something that is that turn on switch for customers or for the field, what you're known for, and you stand out from all of the competition because of that. And then you have those stories to complement it. And then you create heroes out of the sales teams with whom you're working, whether at your company or with your partner. And that breeds that success. The other thing that I often talk about is identifying key industries or sales plays where you shine. Right?
Yeah.
Building your relationship with those stakeholders and making sure that you're going deep somewhere and then wide, oftentimes is important. And then exploring the markets that you want to create, the customers you want. So partnership, right? We at Microsoft pride ourselves on trying to really offer a lot of opportunity to our partners. But likewise, the ones that really catch my attention are the ones that are also going out there and finding customers themselves. And then we're coming together, because in the together, we're bringing even more success. And that really feels like a mutual success. In particular, if you're looking at our enterprise space at Microsoft, I keep going back to be known for something, right? Know your superpower, power, and engaging with the sellers. It will, I must say, it's almost like a viral explosion when you start having success with certain sales reps. So start, as I said, in an industry, know your value proposition, get those customer success stories, and then make heroes out of those sellers. That network effect is so powerful. And I guarantee you, if you want the attention of the sellers, getting someone that has been successful working with you is much more effective than even me going out and telling them about you.
What a phenomenal advice, Nina, because, oftentimes it's hard to distill from, executive talk as to what is actually practical and people should follow. Very heartening to have you kind of describe that. And I think with my key takeaway from your conversation is superpower, like Workspan superpower is partnerships and ecosystems, right? We know what that is. Then apply it to a vertical, to an industry. Like we are focused exclusively on the high-tech industry and the surrounding industry to enable that workflow. And then create your own market, right? I love that piece of that advice. That before Workspan arrived, we were thinking about channels in our old way. We were thinking about ecosystems. This is our new market. So as I apply your learning to ourselves, we have to create the opportunity around the ecosystem market, especially in this decade of the ecosystem. Mm-hmm. And I believe such a story is there for everybody, especially with AI and the platform capabilities now possible. Create your own future. And bring everybody along is a great advice.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Now I want to pivot a little bit to you and the leader. I've known you for decades now. So Nina, always inspiring to talk to you. But in your role, could you, give us some insight as to how you're approaching managing your own team, and what can we think about, nurturing growth and, a growth mindset? How do you do this today in your own team?
Well, we all hopefully know that nothing is possible without our teams, right?
Yep.
So we can talk about the numbers, we can point a North Star, we can get everyone rallied behind a common goal. But it really comes down to investing in your people and making sure that they feel valued, respected. Each and every single one of them knows how they make a difference to the overall goals. I often talk about sometimes you have to slow down to speed up, right? Mm-hmm. You really do. Sometimes you have to just make sure that we're taking the time to provide the context to our teams, the why behind the decision, not just the what, and the game plan. And I think as quickly as the market is moving and as quickly as all of our companies are trying to stay up to speed with the market, shall we say, it's important that we bring everyone along with us. I do a lot of listening. That's the biggest change I think I've seen in the last 5 years. I have lots of ideas, but so do other people. And it's the collective experience that creates the leapfrog moment, right? Mm-hmm. So I really encourage all the voices to come out for us to have ideation sessions, or sometimes I call them, and stealing Disney's word, Imagineering sessions, where people have the opportunity from, it doesn't matter what level. I'm not a very hierarchical person. I'm an idea-oriented impact person. So making sure that you create those avenues where anybody in the organization has the opportunity to be part of the ideation. Some of the best ideas are found there. And then communication often, all the time, sharing your thoughts. And sometimes, honestly, I think I've become less focused on the exact word and trying to be manufactured and polished, rather being authentic.
Right.
So you find me a little bit more unbridled, more coming from my heart and my gut, versus trying to make sure that I've used every buzzword or the perfect positioning of the sentence, because in that authenticity, people connect. Yeah. And that's really important at this time.
Yeah, that's great authentic advice for all the partnership leaders out here. So, Nina, there's a movement in the industry that we are part of and championing. That's to get 2,000 chief partner officers in the C-suite. And as these partnering leaders are developing, creating revenue impact and growth, I think it's also the human side that they have to manage larger and larger teams, create business impact by harnessing the value of that team, the impact of that team. So I take your advice here for the larger community as well. Very well said. Bravo. With that, Chip, I want to bring you back in for any audience questions we have, especially the hard ones for Nina.
Thanks, Chip.
Yeah. No, some interesting questions. I think, let me bring up this one. It was actually kind of directed at me, but not exactly. It's sort of, I think it was just a question overall. So about the ROI for an ISV, since there are marketplace fees, and offset by the sales cycle economics, faster or less expensive too. So I think that's a good question, right? There are costs with listing, but there's so many advantages of co-selling and getting connected in with Microsoft Field.
Absolutely. I'll even add to that, Chip. Think about the cost per customer acquisition that you currently have in your environment versus now having the opportunity to showcase your solutions to a much larger customer wrath that almost feels like an endorsement from that company, right? And then likewise at Microsoft, our sellers actually are encouraged to primarily transact through the marketplace. That's a big, important thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
If they're being gold and compensated off of their marketplace transactions as well, they are proactively trying to introduce you into accounts, and you're not even present sometimes. You don't even know about it. And then you're invited in. Think about having all of these people agitate and introduce you into accounts that you're not having to do that initial tick up, right? That to me is that X factor that marketplace can provide.
That's great, and also it's streamlined, right? You mentioned it earlier. It's like streamlining the process. If it's there, you can transact. You can transact more quickly, and make it makes it just easier to close the deal.
Yeah, absolutely, and it keyed into the purchasing departments right away too. Right?
Exactly.
Makes a lot of things a lot easier. So.
Yeah. This is not exactly a question, but I just loved hearing from Sanjay that as a thank you for your passion and sincerity come through and everything, and powerful team and people philosophy. Blown away. So thank you, Sanjay.
Thanks. It's all about the people, you guys. Even our partnerships are all about the people. As much as we like to say we're all on marketplace, it's a lot of people lending each other trust and then finding joint goals to move forward, right?
Yeah. That's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Maybe one last question here. What are some key topics that frequently come up in your conversation with other partners and customers?
Well, Anna, you asked one of them, like, what's the key to success, right? A lot of people are wondering what that magic sauce is. And that is what I shared today. I think people are also very curious about AI. AI, I will tell you, is the number one door opener. And our partner ecosystem, every company is reaching out right now. Every CEO is asking their CTO or different areas of the business today, what is our AI plan, right? And it's a different way of thinking about the space we're all in. We don't have to position anymore. The AI conversation is what is opening the door, right? And then we have to have a conversation really around, are you ready as a company for what you want to explore with AI? And that's a real meaningful conversation today. I also like to get to very practical things. You can work with customers and maybe you come up with 200 dream projects where AI could make a material difference. But it's about getting started with 1, 2, or 3 that make a material difference. And most importantly, to your employees as well, where they can feel and experience that change. And that's where things start to move and shake really quickly for companies. So I think that's another thing that I'm constantly asked about, is just how to get started with AI. You got to get your data into the right place. You need to make sure it's secure. And that's exactly why I'm here at Microsoft. I feel like we're the best place to be able to offer our clients that.
It's fantastic.
Well,
Terrific.
Thank you, Nina, so much. This has been very engaging, exciting session, and we really appreciate everything you do for the ecosystem.
Well, thank you, and thank you for our partnership as well. And in all truth, just helping to bring transparency into how we work with so many partners as well. That's your magic. I really believe that that's your superpower, is you offer companies that have good intent, the ability to work together with full transparency and trust in the data. So thank you for that.
It's awesome.
Thank you, Nina.
Thank you, Nina. Fantastic. Okay, Amit, Nina, I thank you both for sharing your thoughts, and appreciate you joining us, Nina, and fantastic, great session.
Take care. Thank you, Chip.
Yeah. Thanks, Chip.
Thanks, guys. Okay, so next, I think we have just we have a quick poll that we're gonna take. So go ahead, and this poll is about challenges in architecting a successful partnership with cloud hyperscalers. So we've heard a lot of the benefits. What are some of the challenges? Love to hear that from you. Okay, next up, Gary Larder and is going to be joining us. And Gary, I'm going to bring you guys in, and I'm actually going to take the screen down and bring us all in together here. There we go. Gary, Puneet, welcome.
Thanks, Chip.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave it to you guys, and I will step out and take it away.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Thanks, Chip.
Okay.
Gary, thanks for being here. I'll kick off with a quick intro for those of you who don't know Gary. So Gary is currently the director of the International AWS Alliance team at OWN, formerly known as OWN Backup. Before OWN, Gary was at AWS, where he spent 5 years, most recently heading up partner co-sell programs across the EMEA region. He was instrumental, and he developed the AWS partner co-sell program, ACE, in EMEA. And he deeply advocates, I can attest to that, for data-driven partnerships and co-selling at scale. He lives in UK with his wife and his 2-year-old daughter, and they have a cockapoo called Skipper. So Gary, very excited to have you here. Welcome. If you want to do a quick intro, just add on to what I just said. It'll be helpful for people to know who we're talking to.
Thanks, Puneet, and then thanks for having us here. So it's great to be part of these conversations. I really enjoyed that the intro conversation with Nina. Certainly took some learnings from that. But you hit most of the key salient points there from why we're having this conversation today. I head up the alliances for OWN, for our team international. I was at AWS for a fair few years, predominantly working in co-sell programs and partner alignment. So I've got a point of view that I've brought 2 inches to the other side of the fence, working as a partner now and working with a number of those programs and functions at AWS. So looking forward to the conversation today. My evening, your morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Gary. I know it's a little bit late UK time. So let's dive in. I know you have been a very strong practitioner, and as you work with the AWS ecosystem, and you have been a keynote speaker at many of their conferences, because you have that unique perspective where you've been there at AWS and now you're building the same at OWN. As you build that journey at OWN, can you talk a little bit about how co-sell and marketplace are important today?
Absolutely. So what we're doing here, co-sell and marketplace are kind of front and center and foundational to our next stage of growth. But before I unpack, it's kind of interesting to look at the question for a second. Why is co-sell and marketplace important? The fact that they're 2 distinct questions within a question kind of talks to where we are today with the evolution of co-sell and marketplaces. Mm-hmm. If we had asked that question a year or so ago, it would have been 2 distinct questions.
Right.
Why are you co-selling, and what benefits do you have, and how do you interact with marketplace? And I'm pretty sure a year from now, if we ask a question, it'd be a lot more consolidated in terms of marketplaces being very fundamental to the whole co-sell process. So one of the things that we're looking at is how do we bring marketplace as kind of assumptive part of that whole co-sell. So that was just a little consideration when I saw the question. It's kind of interesting that the direction of travel is going that way. We're right in the middle of it. But for OWN, co-sell and marketplace is really, really front and center. It's not just for us. We see it as a customer-driven kind of sea change in the industry. There's some great data points that are being launched at the moment. I know Forrester have recently said that marketplaces, for example, are increasing average selling prices by 80%, reducing time to close by around 40%, and the win rates are up by 27%. And I was really interested to hear Amit at the beginning of this session talking about the Canalys view that over the next 5 years, third-party software and services like Own are going to account for 45 billion through marketplaces. So that's about 84% annual increase in growth through marketplaces in the next 5 years or so. So there's a huge evolution of how customers like to buy. And we want to make sure that we're primed to take full advantage of that and have that central to our strategy. So for Own, we've seen kind of a localized version of some of that growth metrics. We've seen for ourselves in the EMEA region for our AWS alignment an increase of 730% in marketplace total contract value, 271% increase in our launch co-sell revenue in ACE. And by all the measurable metrics that ACE look at us and AWS look at us in terms of a partner, we are exceeding and accelerating past those at quite a clip. I won't go into what those are, but we've got 6 categories of goals. The least one are about 130%, and the highest one are about 271%. So in terms of the acceleration that we're seeing, because of co-seller marketplace is really been pronounced in terms of what we need to be able to scale into our next stage of growth. If you'll indulge me, Puneet, what I'd love to do is walk you through a recent customer use case to kind of highlight how we co-sell and where marketplace comes into that. That's kind of indicative of what's bred some of that success.
Yeah, absolutely. The customer example will make it even more real. So go ahead.
Yeah, I'll take a couple of minutes. I won't go too deep into it, but it was a large enterprise manufacturing customer that we were working with. In no way an isolated incident. This is quite representative of how we co-sell with AWS. But our team, as always, have done a fantastic job in aligning with the stakeholders that we would generally speak to around the Own service 3 key platforms: Salesforce, ServiceNow, and Dynamics CRM. We provide a suite of security tools and platforms for that, for certain resilience and data compliance needs. So we were working with the Center of Excellence and the CRM owners around that. It's very quickly identified that our solution met the challenges of their business. Largely that was around concerns around business continuity if they had any kind of data issues in the platform. So from a technical standpoint, we had ticked all the boxes. They weren't really sure how they were going to pay for it. From a funding perspective, where's the budget coming from? They didn't have a line of sight on that. And as such, we didn't have a line of sight to our path to close. So as is with our process that we've built with integration with Workspan, an opportunity was generated into ACE, which is the AWS co-sell platform, very quickly validated by their excellent EMEA ACE validation team. And it comes back to us with some wealth of insights. So we immediately get to see all of the account team that's supporting that customer, the account manager, other sales personas, if it's a large account, as this was, the partner sales representative, the ISV sales representative. So we have a plethora of people that we could reach out to connect to co-sell. We didn't reach out straight away, as we often don't. We like to do some further analysis within ACE. There's some insight that we can gain called propensity to buy analysis. Gives us a view whether the customer that we're aligned with has a high propensity, as the name suggests, weighted score from 1 to 5, if they would have a high propensity to see value in having a marketplace conversation. AWS doesn't give us the secret sauce that's under the hood in the algorithm. It's kind of like the Colonel's 11 spices, but you can make certain assumptions there. So if they're high on that list, which this customer was, they're likely to have committed spend with AWS and EDP. They're likely to understand the marketplace proposition or even have a marketplace first approach and strategy. So knowing that, we can then trigger the next stage of our co-sell engagement, an invite to the account manager to align with our sellers. And we would then prime them with more information around what the pain point of the customer was, what our solution is we're providing, the point in the sales cycle we're at, and what the asks we need from the seller. So once we come into that call, we are very much connected, aligned, full of insight. And what we find is often the case, and why co-sell is so valuable when the marketplace comes straight into that co-sell engagement, is on that first call, we did some stakeholder mapping, because what we generally find is we're speaking to a different area of business than the AWS reps. They have a higher level engagement, usually understanding the direction of travel, digital transformation, priorities, the security concerns and all that kind of stuff, but also their budget. So they helped us walk around some of those key stakeholders, give some more light on the budgetary concerns they had, and agreed that marketplace was the right approach. This customer was trying to look at consolidation of SaaS vendors through the marketplace, so that's very much ticked the boxes there. So coming out of that call, there were some great actions. The seller went into the procurement team of our customer without us. They had a meeting the next week for other matters. In that meeting, they also advocated our solution, which gives us credibility working alongside their key trusted advisor. They educated those teams in terms of how it would be beneficial to purchase this product they didn't have budget for through the marketplace, offsetting pre-committed spend and being part of their consolidation strategy. But also in unison to that, they had the AWS Marketplace customer advisors go into the customer and join the dots in terms of the buying teams. The guys and girls that understood the constructs of AWS and Marketplace, self-educating the buying team that weren't familiar, justifying the value of buying our products through the marketplace. So we didn't even have to go to the customer with that. So anyway, long story short is going from an opportunity where we had no line of sight in terms of the close path or the budget, that accelerated to closing out in 3 weeks. And it's the scenario that really kind of amplifies the value of co-seller marketplace, because there's clear value in each of the camps. For the customer, they got their consolidation strategy met. They got to use pre-aligned committed spend to AWS. They had service credits that the account manager provided to accelerate this, that they can use to offset other spends at AWS. We love that because we don't have to pay for that. That comes from AWS. And they've now got a tried and tested procurement path for other upsells, cross-sells for the team that we're working in. Us as a partner have huge value in terms of acceleration, in terms of getting funding for our customer. We now have fantastic relationships with those teams to take our proposition into wider teams. And the AWS team found value in retirement of quota, certain spiffs. They're advocating for a solution to their customer that they can't provide. We're very complementary and non-competitive. So they're adding value to customer obsession there. And they're cementing their place as a trusted advisor, bringing the right solution for a challenge they had further down the stack that some of their high-level stakeholders weren't familiar with. So that's a very long way of saying bringing co-seller marketplace in as a strategy is one of those equations that's absolutely opposite of a zero-sum game. We've got 1 + 1 + 1 equals 11 in terms of the amount of value. So, yeah, I think you can tell from my expressive there that we find a lot of value in co-seller marketplace.
Yeah, Gary, I see a lot of passion, and I think you started off with the numbers, which were phenomenal, and then you took it to the next level by giving that customer example. And what we are seeing is similar patterns. So let me build upon that question, because that seems to be part of like a big strategy on how you accelerated co-sell. So let's just talk about that. When you came along and you set this team and Owen's team for success for co-sell, how did you accelerate that journey?
Yeah, thanks, Puneet. I mean, coming with a certain point of view from AWS, and I'm going to speak specifically to our EMEA practice here, and maybe just to set the state of the partnership. Own is a US headquartered company. We're technically founded out of Tel Aviv. We've got a headquarters in New Jersey. And as we're developing and establishing our AWS relationship over the last 6 years, our partner team has been based in North America. So our partner development managers, our marketplace development managers, our solution architects on the AWS side, partner marketing manager, which is fantastic, doing great work over there. As I'm sure many of us on this audience will agree, the line of sight across the Atlantic can be relatively cloudy in terms of understanding the nuances and intricacies of the EMEA market, and be able to establish a go-to-market in EMEA from the States can be challenging. So I came on board last July to figure that out, to build out the go-to-market for EMEA and build out the strategy to get this co-sell really ramped up. So we're talking kind of in about a 1.5 year range here, the success that we've seen. And The first thing that we needed to do back then, when we didn't have any representation on the AWS side, is understand our priorities. So we looked at 3 things I talk about to answer this question. First, what were the foundational goals that we set for ourselves and the stepping stones that would take us from where we were to where we wanted to be? And we'll talk about those in terms of the high-level buckets in a second. Secondary is, what are the goals that we gave ourselves internally to show the value back to the business in language they understand in terms of revenue and opportunities? And then thirdly, which can't be minimized, is how and why did we get the buy-in and how do we evangelize the value to the business so that we had the leadership and sales organization behind our strategy? Because you can have the best alliance, partnerships, channel function in the world, but if it doesn't resonate with the wider teams, it's going to be pushing on a closed door. Just to run through those 3 points, the first being, I think the most important, is our direction of travel. What is our priorities in terms of our foundational goals? And I look at it in 3 areas: visibility, peerage, and activation. And visibility is the bit that kind of informed the heading of this conversation, is data-driven and programmatic partnerships. So what I see as visibility is having our data propagate the own capabilities across the AWS organization, telling our story with data. And I'll come back to how we did that in a second. The second is peerage, building out our respective team at AWS to have headcounts within AWS that have a vested interest in own success, and how do we get them? And then that leads on to the third piece, which is more around execution. We call it activation, is once we've built up that credibility and alignment, how do we activate the team to build out specific go-to-markets in the areas that we should be and where it resonates? So that visibility piece in terms of data telling our story, foundationally, that's ACE, right? So ACE is a platform for us to co-sell, but it's also a platform to gather data over time. So putting my old hat on, advocating ACE to other partners, some of the opinions that partners would have about ACE, and I understand why they have it to a certain degree, is it's an admin overhead. It's really burdensome in terms of burning my resources to maintain. And I'm only doing it because a partner manager says I have to do it to maintain tier compliance. Now, the partners that get it, and I put ourselves in the camp, see it as a strategic differentiator for your partner practice. Some of the key value levers of ACE is, 1, we get strategic acceleration through alignment with the right stakeholders in the AWS business, as I talked about in that earlier example. Fantastic, huge value there. 2, we can have financial acceleration through funding in those opportunities. Great, they can really accelerate opportunities in their sales cycle. But they're kind of individual values that come into the opportunity. The bit that's often overlooked is it's the platform that allows you to evangelize your capabilities at scale. So this is what I'm talking about, a data-driven alignment with AWS. You should be registering every opportunity in the platforms, whether you need co-sell support or not. We often do, because that's the way that we're structured with those different stakeholder alignments and so forth. But even if you can run that sales cycle yourself, put it in for visibility only, because over time, those opportunities and data will paint a picture of the shape and sound of the customer that you care about. The opportunities that you're sourcing, co-selling, aligning with, and winning is going to tell where you resonate in a region, a geography, a size segmentation, a vertical, and a use case. And that starts to inform the AWS business.
Right.
If you think about it, AWS has tens of thousands of sellers.
Yeah.
They've got 250 plus products and services they need to think about. They've got tens, if not hundreds of thousands of partners that they need to consider. They can only down select who they're going to align with based on evidence. And that data is our evidence. So it starts to show where we resonate. Nina said success breeds success. I completely agree. If we can evidence success in financial services in the UK in the enterprise sector, sure as hell they're going to pick up the phone when we call them, so we've got another opportunity in that sector. So that's that visibility piece. Once we've got a solid foundation there, that leads directly into the peerage piece. If we're asking for a partner development extension manager, PDM, Be My counterpoint to develop a go-to-market for EMEA, who's responsible for the deliverables and the outcomes, the first question I'm going to be asked is, why should you have one? We've only got X amount of resource. They only manage a finite amount of partners. The data justifies the ask. And that's why we've gone from 0 to 5 in a year. We've got a PDME, public sector PDM. We've got our marketplace development managers. We've got an ISM and ISV success manager for public sector across EMEA. And in the UKI, our primary market, we've been elevated to what they see as a primary go-to-market partner because the data tells the right story.
Right.
And then all of that leads to the third bucket, activation. We could be more specific on where we want to engage now. So if we come in cold and try and do lunch and learns and account mappings and door knocking, you can only have isolated success. If the data is telling you where to place your chips, as we do, we only have a few resources ourselves, but the data is telling us we should be establishing campaigns, activities with the manufacturing team in Germany, we're informed.
Yeah.
So that's our high direction of travel goals. Very quickly, the internal goals that we look at, we've slightly changed for hyperscale partners such as AWS. In our ecosystem partners such as Salesforce, one of our closest partners, arguably our biggest sourcing partners, as with our resellers, ISVs and so forth, the biggest metric we have is sourced revenue. The point of origin is coming from the partner. With AWS, we've changed the metrics because the biggest value that we see that have at this point of our journey with them is influence revenue. So how are they helping us support the successful fruition of deals? And we've got co-sell revenue and sell-through revenue with marketplaces because we want to amplify that in terms of success.
Right. I think that's phenomenal, right? Like a lot of people come from the old partnering world where it was all about presence, and presence was a lot of times physical presence, but you have completely shifted the paradigm. And what you're saying is for large organizations like an Amazon, where you have to create visibility for hundreds of thousands and you have to start building a parallel team. I think that's phenomenal that you are able to replicate or mirror your team to that team. So now that team has vested interest in your success. I think that's phenomenal success. And that to me is truly unique. A lot of companies, I think, trip up on that. So you have done that successfully. So kudos to you. You and I have chatted for the last several months now, how WorkSpan has helped you in that journey. And this will be my last question because I want to keep an eye on the clock. How are you able to take that programmatic approach with WorkSpan as you thought about creating that big presence in the Amazon team using that data-driven approach?
It wouldn't be possible without integration, is my view. Before we had WorkSpan plugged in, I was burning nearly all of my resources just in opportunity generation and maintenance. One of my team was spending 60% of her time registering, managing, and aligning on opportunity. So just the sheer automation of the integration between our platforms is a huge step forward in terms of what we can do with the resources to drive value. The other piece that I'm really interested in, and we've been talking about a lot recently, is the actionable insights that we can get from the reporting that you're building for us around that data. So coming back from that visibility piece, data-driven insights coming through to what we care about really, which is the activation and execution. We want that insight, and WorkSpan starting to be able to division that from where opportunities are landing geographically, where they're landing from size segmentation, velocity of close, all of that kind of good stuff, so it can start to inform our decisions.
Yeah, no, I think that's phenomenal, and you've been a great partner. I know we are going to run a little bit tight on time, so we do have an exciting announcement to make, especially that you talked about the marketplace and co-sell, how it has kind of become one and it has become important. So Chip, if you don't mind sharing the slide. So this is exciting for us, Gary. Like you were saying, right? The importance of marketplace, how they have become strategic for enterprise sales, not just from a procurement perspective, from a propensity to buy, how you're going to go construct that deal. So we saw that, and keeping in line with that approach, I'm very happy to announce today that we are offering customers early access to our full suite of like hyperscaler offerings. So this offering combines co-sell and marketplace into one. Workspan will enable a partner like you to manage both co-sell and private offers in their own native environment, which is the Salesforce environment. I think this is phenomenal because it greatly simplifies the burden that you have, especially with constrained resources in this macro. So across teams, as you look at sales team, if you look at finance teams, alliance teams, operations, all 4 teams get impacted in some way, shape, or form. And by offering this solution, we are bringing it all together seamlessly in an integrated manner and in a turnkey way, which is fully automated. So I'm very excited about that. And then as part of this conference, if you go to the next slide, Chip, we are also giving an attractive promotion. So companies can join our early access program, where they can get discounts up to 20% on your first year subscription. We have limited slots available, but this I think is going to be phenomenal in terms of the impact it creates. With our offering, we also take a differentiated approach to the business model. There's no vendor lock-in. You own your marketplace listing. You can do anything with it once we have put you up on the marketplace. And then our software is scalable. We manage heavy volume on the co-sell side. We're going to do the same on the marketplace side. And what you have to do, you simply scan this QR code and you can talk to one of our sales reps. So I'm very excited about that. I wanted to announce it before we take any questions. Chip, why don't we come in and see if there are any questions for Gary, especially as he has some unique perspective, having worked both sides.
Yeah, thanks. This is a great session, Gary. Thank you. Gosh, you were just a wealth of knowledge and data. The numbers you're throwing out are just incredible. Really, really appreciate it. And it really comes through. So thank you. Yeah, I think a couple of good questions here. One that I thought was interesting is this one from Sanjay Advani. Impressive stats and storyline, Gary. Would be curious to learn whether the EMEA co-sell results for OWN and others outshine the US, despite the teams being US based. That's been my experience.
Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. Yeah, it fluctuates from time to time. Over the beginning part of this year, we actually saw that we accounted for 70% at the time of the overall marketplace total contract value globally coming through the EMEA region. I think what we find, especially in the establishing years, we've been a AWS partner for the last 4 or 5 years, but we've really had a go-to-market in anger in AWS EMEA for the last year and a half or 2, is we are a little more connected in terms of the stakeholders we have there. And when we have a message like this co-sell and marketplace strategy in play, we've been able to turn it on incredibly quickly. So we've seen 56%, I think, at last check, of the global opportunities through ACE were sat in EMEA, and 70% of the revenues of total contract value of marketplace in the first half of this year were through EMEA. So to answer your question, yeah, we've seen the same.
Great. This was an interesting one that just came up from Colin Huff. Great insights, Gary. We are in the early days of our partnership with AWS. What's a realistic goal for POs versus AOs in the first 2 years?
Yeah, it's a really good question. One we hear, or I would
just a definition in case. So POs and AOs are partner originated and AWS originated.
Yeah. So the expectation or hope from a lot of partners is once you become aligned with AWS, the tap for AOs will turn on and they will just start pouring through. But I couldn't agree with Nina more on the success breeds success here in terms of getting that flow all started. So my advice, and I think it's kind of evidence in our strategy, is get these partner originated opportunities flowing into the system. You want everything in there in terms of data, because that buys your cost of entry to the teams within AWS to understand your capabilities. Once they understand with data where your proposition sits in terms of the vertical customer and use case, that's when the AOs will start opening up. They know that you are a solid value add to their proposition, especially if it's going through the marketplace, especially if it's hitting their back pocket in terms of spiffs and in quota retirement. That's when those AOs start coming back to you. But in all reality, AWS isn't really an opportunity generating machine as much as this is why we weighted our metrics more to influence and sell through than the AO, which is partner sourced. But to summarize that, focus on the POs to prove your practice. The AOs will come.
Terrific. Awesome. Maybe one last quick question from Michael Mantis. What support resources does Workspan provide to help with the platform onboarding and integration between Workspan platform and CSP?
Is that better for you, Puneet, or for us? I mean, we've had.
Why don't we go the customer lens, Gary? You tell us how you were supportive.
We've had a wealth of support from Workspan, and they've. What I've really liked is they've constantly evolved to service any challenges that we've had. So we've had a great team around us as we had the integration onboarded, and we've had some teams come alongside us more recently to build some operational rigor with us to help us streamline some things out, and additional resources coming in to one of our asks that we had to support us in more data and insights. So I think the summary of that question in terms of my response is they're listening and they're responding very quickly when we have an ask.
That's phenomenal, Gary. Great validation from someone like you, who I respect a ton in terms of as a practitioner. So thank you for those kind words. We really appreciate the partnership.
Thank you, and enjoyed this conversation. So thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Gary. This is fantastic. Really appreciate you joining and sharing your insights and numbers.
Gary, thanks for staying up late. We appreciate it.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Awesome. Fantastic. I think we have another poll coming up, and then it should be coming up right now, and we'll keep it going. I'm excited to welcome Brett Fountain. Brett is joining us from Deepwatch, and Brett, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chip. Appreciate it. Good to see you, Puneet. Thanks for having me on the show today. Really I'm part of this whole forum. You know, it's interesting information to share it there. And man, Gary was dropping some knowledge on everybody today. That was some great stuff. You know, it's hard to get those inner workings and those understandings of like how to, you know, how do you tame the savage beast and those, you know, or we like to say the dark arts of AWS, and hearing from those great peers is always fantastic. So big applaud from me to Gary for a lot of the knowledge he was dropping on the crew today. So
it's awesome. All right, I'm going to let you guys go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Brett, you said it directly, right? And I'll just do a brief intro. But between you and Gary, it's very hard to learn from, it's very hard to learn all about the complex practices that Amazon has. And you guys are simplifying it for the community that has joined us today. Just in terms of introduction, yours is a very fun introduction that I love doing. Brett is also known as Cloud Thor. So that's why this is fun. He has the AWS Alliance team at Deepwatch, which is a big partner to Amazon. He'll talk about it. He's also a co-founder of Caddyshack. So he's been an advocate of partnering, and specifically partnering with AWS for a very long time. Brett has led 3 successful ISVs into the Amazon ecosystem. And he's right now focused on a mission to make Deepwatch the top resilient enterprise security platform that Amazon works with. Under his leadership, Deepwatch has received multiple awards and nominations, including Partner of the Year award in 2023. And Brett himself was nominated for the CRN Top 100 People You Should Know. So after that fun introduction, Brett, if there is anything to add, otherwise we'll dive right into the questions.
No, I think that was a mouthful for sure. And again, thanks for, I'd like to say I've been around the APO and the APN for many moons now, and my background was a little better, but, you know, try to come virtually from the AWS spheres, right? So many great things have come from that location and working with AWS over the years. It's great to be part of it. And yeah, and thanks for the shout out for Caddyshack, right? It's the largest AWS partner peer community out there. And we're just trying to make the place a little easier, make the world of partnerships working with AWS a little easier, one partner at a time. And it's a great community for anybody to join. So thanks for the call out on that.
Absolutely. So we'll start with a similar question that we had for Gary. What is your guys' strategy around AWS co-seller marketplace today? Like, how are you building that strategy? I know this is something that you have been passionate about. You have done it at 3 ISVs. So if you could talk a little bit more about that one, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. I try to keep that vision simple, right? AWS is a monster of the weight of the Amazon.com domain there, right? And we want to be able to leverage that really early and often and as transparently as possible. Those are my two priorities when it comes to working with AWS is how we're going to get engaged, how we're going to leverage the weight of a $100 billion domain to help accelerate Deep Watch in the co-sell of the security security environments that are out there today. So yeah, co-sell and marketplace, right? Again, asking to get involved with AWS is such a strong motion in general, right? These guys have changed the world as we know it. The ability to Netflix and chill and Facebook and Instagram, right? Like everything is different now, and so is the co-sell. I mean, they're trusted advisors of some of the largest organizations in the world that have made the decision to come towards the hyperscalers to change the way that they're doing business, and we want to have the same approach with it too. We want to get in again early and often with the AWS teams, understand what are the challenges that we can help solve for. And just be really, really good co-sell buddies to the AWS sellers in general. And marketplace, of course, being that interesting new motion that we've had over the last decade or so, when it's really, really been taken off in the last 5 years, has really changed the way that we go to market, where we've found budget in places that didn't exist before, and how we financially changed the conversation of what we're working through in our opportunities with the customers that we're working with today.
Got it. That's very interesting. So what do you think? What's the future of co-selling with that monster, as you call it? What is the future of Amazon co-selling?
So I'm a big advocate of treating AWS in multiple forms that are all super intertwined together, right? It's not just co-sell. There's co-marketing that comes from it. There's co-building of new technologies, be it competitive or for another version of being, from the technical perspective, customer obsessed, right? How do we work closer with such a big monster with so much data and so much power and strength that can help us be a better partner to not only AWS but a better partner towards the customers that we're working with today. So I think it's really it's going to be three facets for me. Kind of really building that army of co-sellers. Helping my teams understand when to get engaged. How, early and often, like I like to say, how to leverage that relationship of understanding what's going on with the customer, what are some of the challenges that they have there today, and then kind of beyond that, right? This is where it's all very, very intertwined. Building new technologies like our built-in competency that's going to be going GA at reInvent this year, as announced earlier in the year at Reinforce. That gives us the ability to do more, keep our customers safer, and of course, there's that co-marketing that comes along with it. And I think this is all kind of involved in really the co-sell. Again, it's so super intertwined in the way that we go to market with AWS, how we solve for customers' challenges that are out there, and then we build on that in kind of a snowball form of how it's all actually really, really interconnected today.
Yeah, I think you hit the right three themes, right? You co-build, you build the best technology, then you co-market, so you run your campaigns, and then you go do the co-selling part, which is getting involved and engaged with this army of sellers from Amazon that complements your sales team. So then how do you get the attention for this army of sellers, the AWS field? Gary had some ideas. He was taking a data-driven approach, and he was making it very programmatic. What has your approach been if you compare and contrast with things that Own Backup was doing?
Yeah, so I'd say I align a lot with what Gary was talking about there, right? You got to understand. So I'm going to talk about two quick challenges and two things that you have to do in order to work with AWS. So number one, you got to know your divisional placement. If you don't understand where you're supposed to work in such a vast sea of sellers and leaders of leaders and directors and AVPs and all the overlays, you're going to burn bridges because they don't have enough people to be able to scale towards 1,000 partners that are in ISV Accelerate, right? Any of the other intimate, invite-only programs that they have today, all the consulting partners and SIs. If you run around thinking that you can do everything soup to nuts from startup to the enterprise and strategic, you're not going to make a lot of friends that way. So understanding your divisional placement, I think, is number one when you're going to work and approach your co-sell cadence with AWS. Number two is just like Gary said, understanding your superpower. The AWS seller has, on top of those thousands of partners, right? And they've got 275 of their own products they're trying to sell. If you don't know how to correctly articulate that 1 inch difference between you and any of your competitors, you're doing yourself an injustice, and you're doing the injustice of that AWS seller as well, because they just don't have that much time in the day if you can't really articulate that to help you in the co-sell. So those are the two big things that everyone should focus on when approaching with AWS as at the ground level, right? I think beyond that, The other two things that you really got to understand, I'd say of all the members that we had when we first, kind of surveyed early on, we saw a lot of the same trend, and this is very true in the emerging world. Same thing for the really big partners that are out there. Working with AWS is not the channel. Let me just say that right now. It is not the channel. Alliances is a whole different motion. It kind of comes across those things I say about, co-sell, co-market, co-build. Channel, again, it's not quite the same. It's a very different motion in how you're integrated into it. Even for somebody like Deepwatch, right? We're an ISV that's digitally native, a D&B, digitally native business to AWS, born in the cloud. The way that we engage is different, again, than channel. And it's because of a lot of those different motions, certain programs that you can get in publicly, like ISV Accelerate, some of those that it could be private, different types of betas that are out there, both from the co-build to co-market areas, right? So I'd say, those knowing your superpower, really understanding your divisional placement is key. And, again, don't treat them like the channel. It's not the channel. You can't go in and treat it like the channel where you show up and say, all right, here's your spiffs for selling the Deepwatch platform today. It doesn't work like that. You can't
Right.
Amazon sellers. You could adhere and align, as we say, right? Align to the internal programs that are accelerators towards both buckets, right? And AWS sellers, this is a mic drop hint right here. They got two different buckets that you can impact. One for sales commission and the other one for sales compensation. So if you want to help them with their quota retirement, you got to understand how to do both of those. And there's a couple different unique ways to do it. Some of them I can't even talk about. Other ones you just have to kind of discover on your own, do a little bit of research of how you impact their actual compensation programs. That's really, really key. If you want to get their attention, understand how that works.
I think that's really powerful, right? Like making the differentiation that it is not the channel. So you have to make sure that you have a targeted strategy and you're not taking that same playbook that you might have developed several years ago, because this is again, I'll keep going using your word, this is a new monster, right? So you have to make sure that you have the right strategy targeted towards that. So you and I have looked at numbers together. You have done a case study with us. We have seen phenomenal growth in the way you have built that co-sell piece, especially with the small team, right? You don't have a big team at Deepwatch, but the returns that you've had and how you have established yourself as a key player in that ecosystem has been phenomenal. So how did you do that, Brett? And in that context, if you can also talk about the role that Workspan played in that journey, I think that would be great for some of the audience to hear.
Yeah, 100%, right? So, one of the things I always mention is, again, transparency. You want to have as much transparency in your pipeline with AWS, because this is what gets you recognized. This is what gets you on the P&Ls of different product leaders across AWS. And there's a secret sauce to the way that you do that too. And there's two ways to do it. There's butts and seats, or you work with an integration partner that can help you accelerate and scale what you're trying to accomplish with AWS. So, even my vision of how we can impact so many different parties inside of AWS, I could never get there on my own. Me, spending time trying to manually enter this stuff all day long. That's one thing, right? That's a simplified version of Workspan, what Workspan does for Deepwatch. But what it really does is so much more complex in the way that, I get to execute against my strategy with all those different key terms, right? Knowing how to leverage ACE, different, everything from hashtags to different products that should be integrated into what your platform has and how you can call those out is a really massive accelerator. Having the different tracking to your marketing campaigns gets you the visibility to the marketers, and that all comes through ACE, every single last piece of it. So, part of our rise to fame pretty quickly here at Deepwatch with the AWS ecosystem is absolutely leveraging a massive partner like Workspan today, right? We couldn't get to be where we needed to be without you guys. I'd have to hire 5 people just to keep up with the so many opportunities that we have, just the weekly cadence of keeping that data clean and launching opportunities and all the other kind of stuff that goes through it. And, it gets pretty complex really quickly. But again, having Workspan there, getting to leverage all the little ins and outs and things that I know how to, leverage ACE for our transparency, and using Workspan's ability to scale has really been a massive part of the, executing against the whole vision of me coming to Deepwatch to kind of execute against the aligned strategy and things that I wanted to accomplish here. So.
Yeah, and I think you're one of the early adopters, because Amazon is now mandating a lot of its top partners to start integrating and using that CRM integration and not having the partners come in manually. So something that you're, I'm sure, pretty familiar with, and therefore it becomes even more important for us to establish that relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big part of our ecosystem here at Deepwatch, and how we work with them, moving forward, not only from those compensation things I talked about, from quota retirement to impacting their commissions, but adhering to some of the changes that are coming up in the future years. Up in 2024, our strategy is going to have to shift and change. It's going to have more, there's going to be more requirements and need around ACE itself, the way we're audited, the way we launch opportunities, and marketplace 100% being a requirement on top of an ACE integration. And let me just say too, I couldn't imagine trying to, use maybe the native tool from AWS. We've looked at it before a couple of ISVs ago. We were one of the first beta partners that tried to do it, and it was really, really tough. It's a full-blown development project, in my opinion. I think people underrate it both inside of AWS and from a partner perspective. It's not out of the box technology unless you're working with a partner that can actually help you get there. I'd say it's more of it's a platform integration, software tuning program at a minimum. And if you don't have really strong development teams that can help you do that, it's going to be tough, right? And you're kind of on your own. It's one of the things I love about AWS, right? You can build the fastest race car in the world on AWS, but without really good drivers, the car's not going to go anywhere. Like, I don't know how to run an F1 race car, but you guys do, and that's why we partner with WorkSpan, because I'm not trying to build new technologies just to integrate with ACE. I'd rather have somebody like you that are experts to help me execute against my vision.
I think that's a great analogy, right? Like, you're sitting in the back seat, you get the drive, and you get to your destination from point A to point B, and we are sitting in the driver's seat, making sure that you don't have to deal with that complex technology. So I think that's a great analogy. I might use that in the future. So you touched upon this. We just came out, like we announced today, that look, for Amazon, we have seen, for even all the hyperscalers, we are seeing co-sell and marketplace are now one. Everybody's talking about co-sell and marketplace in the same breath. So how is co-sell and marketplace important for you in the future as you think about year 2, year 3, year 4 of that journey that you have currently with DeepWatch?
Yeah, it's very, very important. We really have kind of we have an all-in approach when it comes to AWS over here at DeepWatch. Again, ISV, DNB to AWS, everything we do is native to it, from services that we integrate with to the co-sell motions, again, and even the marketing motion. There's a lot of the co-branding there. I think, as the changes come, right, it gives us, I'm pretty open to pretty open to the changes that are coming because of the acceleration that it can keep having for DeepWatch. I think if you're not positioned really well, it's going to make it even more difficult to work with AWS in your co-sell motions, just because there's more technical requirements. They can't cater to everybody and be perfect for all partners that are out there. You've got to really kind of understand how your organization can adhere to theirs. So for us, I think it's a tactical advantage for sure that allows us to execute against our strategy to get even tighter with AWS, especially with more requirements coming. Just, same thing for call it like a regulation, right? You have to attest to different kind of lines to be able to make your co-sell motion work. And in AWS's defense, they've got to make it tighter. They've got to automate more. And this is where a lot of these requirements are coming from. In order for them to scale, these are the certain kind of markers they got to put in place for all partners to adhere to, which is, so again, it's looking at the community as a whole, it's new challenges, but they're only hurdles. They're things that can be overcome with great partners. And then for the rest of us partners that are already there, I think it's a great advantage to kind of, we can keep that accelerating now, because AWS is going to look at us as, again, kind of that next generation partner. Hey, they're doing all this stuff they're supposed to do. They're helping us get a little faster where we need to be. They got the transparency and the visibility to bring us into more co-sell motions and more organically. So the more organic you can get with AWS and that true trusted partnership, right? Building trust with AWS, the faster that, you can move as an organization. So I see as a great advantage, even though it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's all our partners are telling us, that it's a challenge, but if done it the right way, that's going to be a very strong growth vector for each of the partners. So I'll ask the last question, Brett, and then we'll open it up to the audience. You have that unique perspective. You have worked across 3 ISVs in the Amazon ecosystem, and then you are a co-founder at Caddyshack. So people are looking for advice from you. That what advice do you have for partners looking to meet some of these co-sell requirements and really qualify for this co-sell ready status?
Co-sell specifically, again, you got to have all the parts have to be moving. Like all the parts have to be moving in your, and again, like what I like to call the 5 C's of success, right? I'm stealing that from Mr. Michael Musselman. I'll give him a call out from Lacework. They're all intertwined. I'll use even like a competency as an example. A competency is a marketing opportunity, but also a technical validation, which includes funds to do more field marketing events to evangelize and build rapport in your co-sell with AWS, right? So that's a small example of it, but the 5 C's of success include, of course, and this is some of the things that even Gary called out and Nina called out, like your heroes and your champions. It's the co-sell, the co-market, and the co-build. And there's those 2 pillars that encompass those, right? Driving consumption and, of course, your champions, right? Having those champions, this is where, Gary was talking about too, letting in where you find your divisional placement and you find those champions within those different areas that'll take you to those other areas, like you said, manufacturing in Germany. I mean, it's a great example of where to spend your divisional time, where to spend your time during divisional placement. So I think it's a combination. Again, the 5 C's of success are going to lead you towards AWS leaning in towards you. The more that you do, the more they bring you into. And as a example, I'm in 5 betas for co-sell motions today, all AWS led. I'm in 5 more co-build motions with new technology that will differentiate ourselves from any of our competitors out there today, and help with our customer experience. Better onboarding, better accessibility to security and visibility for them. And again, you've got to have those motions to help you move. Integrations and the opportunity to use organizations like Workspan to scale is the only way that you're going to get there. Manual effort and butts and seats kind of thing is it's a little bit becoming a little bit of a thing of the past. It just doesn't scale, and that's a really, really expensive way to scale with a hyperscaler.
Yeah. No, I think that's phenomenal. So Chip, why don't we bring it back? But Brett, what you described here, right, the whole journey, I think it's a very complex journey. And for us to help you with there, we are very thankful for your partnership. Chip, why don't we take some of the questions from the audience?
Yeah, fantastic, Brett and Puneet. Great discussion. Brett, thank you for sharing so much about your, in the trenches. It's really terrific to hear how things are going. It's a question from Barry Schween from Splunk. Hi, Barry. How does AWS define the influence they provide, and how are partners measuring it?
That's an interesting perspective for sure for AWS, defining the influence they provide. I'd say, for me, the obvious ones that are there, right? I'd say, marketplace can help accelerate the purchase journey. It can reduce the amount of time towards procurement teams, red lines. I'd say even for our team, it's one of my favorite comments ever. We're in the enterprise. Most of the time, that's anywhere from a couple weeks to 6 weeks worth of negotiation with a procurement team. And some of our biggest deals have gone to a single meeting with the procurement team. And because of AWS influencing that, having that ability to have marketplace transactions there, leveraging the T's and C's and MSAs of AWS really kind of accelerates the journey. That's a really long explanation of one part of influence for sure. But things like EDP that you can benefit, right? Those are some more the obvious. I'd say influence beyond that, right, is working with the customer, really validating that the partner solution solves for those challenges that the customers are having, and using us as a strategic partner when it comes to all things security with AWS. We see a lot of influence on that side. So I think it's mutual. I think it's a combination of, like we've said, the things that are easily attainable. Influence is a hard thing to measure just in general, but so beyond those super attainable versions, like again marketplace and EDP, maybe credits that can come through the AWS marketplace through like an MPOP program would be another way. But when it comes down to really making an impact to a lot of our opportunities, full disclosure, in my opinion, it's at the tactical level. It's hand-to-hand combat. It's that AWS seller influencing the opportunity as their trusted advisor to say, hey, everything that you're trying to deal with, as AWS, we want to validate that these guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They can actually help you with your challenges that you're going to have today. And on behalf of AWS, we want to say XYZ behind it, right? So there's a ton of different measurements out there. I think those are some of the easiest and obvious, right? That person-to-person influence is bigger and badder than anything else. I'd say even more than credits, and sometimes even EDP influence.
Terrific. Fantastic. Maybe one more question. We're getting close to the top of the hour from Ace Thrombly. In terms of co-marketing and co-build with AWS, what types of initiatives have been effective for you, and how do you make sure you're aligned with AWS's goals?
It's a good one. Co-marketing, co-build, right? So for us, I think this is where everyone needs to kind of look at their own organization when it comes to co-market, co-build. If you wait around for AWS to solve for your problems or align to your business, you're going to be waiting a long time. Steer your own ship. AWS likes that, right? So when we think about co-marketing, co-build, I go to AWS and say, hey, these are the things that are important for my customers. How do we make this better together? How do we leverage your engineering teams and ours to make the world a safer place, right? How do we give them a better experience? And AWS will lean in really, really heavy in that direction. Again, that's where the snowball starts to happen. They like to see the uniqueness of your organization, the intelligent members of your teams. It gets the wheels turning, right? Same thing for the co-market. I jokingly say I got to rent a Ferrari, with AWS to go work on a new Security Live series with those guys, just to be a little more creative. So they love your creativity too. Again, steer your own ship. It really leads to a very fruitful relationship. And AWS likes individuals that stand out of the crowd, the ones that are really customer obsessed. It's not just a new technology we're trying to build. Sometimes it's the better customer experience that we're trying to build for our customers. And that stands out. They love to see that you align with their pillars of leadership. And again, the co-market side, the more unique you are and creative of things you can throw out there, AWS will come back to you because they want to do it again.
Terrific. Awesome.
So I know we are at the top of the hour, Chip. Are we taking more questions or are we closing it?
I think we're closing it there.
Okay, great.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Brett, I think that was very solid advice, especially taking control of your destiny, even though you have thousands of sellers on the Amazon side, just making sure you're deliberate and acting very deliberately to get all the motions of the partnership going. I think that's great advice for everyone. So I appreciate you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you taking the time, especially as you wear your two hats, and you bring that unique perspective. So we really appreciate the advice that you gave us today.
Thank you, Chip. Thank you, Puneet. Appreciate it.
And by the way, we do have a case study for DeepWatch, and if anyone wants to download it, we'll put the link in there, or just hit it with your camera on the QR code. Brett, thank you so much, and Puneet, terrific, awesome session, and really, really appreciate it. Great knowledge.
Thanks, Chip. Thanks, Brett.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, thanks everybody. So we're excited to what a fantastic session. I'm going to just bring up the and Amit, I think if you're in here still, let's bring you back in. Hey Amit.
Hey. Yeah.
Great session. I am going to see if I can make this work. Bring up. Here we go. Yeah, a little bit of recap from the session today. So great session starting with Nina. I love, she said, start with your superpower to get attention from the Microsoft field. I think that was a theme kind of throughout. I think Gary, I know Brett mentioned it. I think Gary mentioned it as well. That's really critical.
Yeah, I love the part that, you talked about dream your future and kind of create your market around it. But I think she also had advice around focus. And our survey, the Coastal survey said, the biggest issue that new partners face is attention from Microsoft, AWS, or Google AEs and PDMs, right? How do you make that happen? So superpower, focus on a vertical or horizontal, and then make your market and lead. I think Brett also said it in the end, be the master of your own destiny.
Yeah. And Gary, I think as well, boy, he was throwing out numbers, and I was trying to write things down as fast as I could. 231% increase in marketplace list activities, and just phenomenal. And I love that co-selling with marketplace is the winning equation, becoming 1 + 1 = 11. We've all heard 1 + 1 = 3.
No, actually, if you're Indian, you've heard ek aur ek is 11, which means 1 + 1 = 11. It's a Hindi Indian. So I'm very excited to hear it from Gary. Actually,
all right.
I made it. He totally gets the power, the exponential, not the additive power of partnering, right? Or incremental, right? If you did 1 + 1 = 3, it's incremental, right? What he's saying exponential here, and this is very exciting.
Yeah. And then rounding it out with Brett, gosh, the 5 C's. So I saw in the chat somebody was asking to re-articulate the 5 C's. So co-sell, co-market, co-build, consumption, and champions. I love that.
Love that. Now I think we've got the flywheel in there. How do you actually convert that into a strategy? He's converted this high-level strategy down into actual executable steps. And I think that's critical here. As partner leaders, the strategy is one thing. You can learn, you can come to this session, get best practices. But I think as you operationalize it, communities like Caddyshack, partnership leaders, these are great places to learn that. But build your practice, build your tooling to kind of achieve this, right?
Yeah. I liked how Brett said, well, this is really important, but I hope it didn't, sort of escape everyone's attention, but understand your divisional placement, he called it, which is, like make sure that if you're in the healthcare industry, make sure that you're connecting with the healthcare teams, sales teams at AWS. If you're in a regional area, make sure you're so make it a very personal, hand-to-hand combat kind of conversation to make sure that you're connected with those people to get their attention. And it's always.
As I was preparing for this session, Sam and I were talking about how co-selling is still human to human. At the end of the day, never forget that. The tooling provides and takes away the burdens, but it's actually a human game at the end of the day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Amit, I think we'll wrap it up here. And I think, I'll just mention that we got a couple of live events coming up that we'll be out in force, and really excited to be in Dallas on November 14th through 13th through 15th, I think it is. Kicks off on the afternoon of the 13th, and with all the Microsoft executives, Kevin Pisker and
Sarah Steger, several people are there.
Yeah, a bunch of Microsoft executives are going to be there. So make sure that if you're not already registered there and you partner with and want to co-sell with Microsoft, it's really a great place to be. And then of course reInvent for AWS, really going to be exciting as well at the end of November and beginning of December.
Yeah, I'm excited about the Ultimate Partner Live event. Vince organizes a great show, and I'm speaking there with Greg Sarafin at EY, talking about the future of chief partnerships and the chief partner officer role, and what it means to the community and ecosystem world. So he's an absolute master at orchestrating ecosystems and business networks, and going to share some really good practices and data.
Actually, I'll just take a second and bring up the, oh gosh, let's see if I can find it here. Here we go. Yeah, it's a terrific event. I mentioned Kevin Pisker, Heather Deggans, Dan Rippey is going to be presenting, Jake Swenson on the marketplace, Oguo Otunya in global sales, and you and I are in there. Niti Gupta from VMware. Yeah.
Right.
So it's going to be a great session. Allison West Hughes, also corporate vice president with Microsoft. So really going to be a great event in Dallas. So if you're interested, if you also would be remiss if we didn't mention, book a demo. And if you're interested in any of the things that have been shared today and would like to explore a little bit more, we're all ready to take your call, and love to chat with you. I think that is it. Please do take our event survey. We'd love to hear and improve each time. And we're planning our next EBS in January, I think, right, Amit?
Yeah.
Yeah. So coming up. All right, I think that's a wrap.
Thank you, Chip, for hosting this session. It's always phenomenal. And thank you to the organizing team at WorkSpan. And
Great
the
team. Yeah, phenomenal team. EB and Kevin and Sam and everybody. So
yeah,
terrific. Thank you all for joining, and we'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.